I just finished The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This was a Christmas present to me, so I wanted to make sure I read it in a reasonable time, because I don't always do that. And, it was really good. I really liked it. It was a very sweet book. It's described as heartwarming, somewhere on here. And it definitely is. Essentially it's about the ragtag crew of a little spaceship called the Wayfarer, whose job it is to make wormholes, basically. Like, I guess that's how people travel quickly in space, and so their job is to punch these holes in space and connect them up to each other. And the book is mostly not about that, though. The book is mostly about just the crew living on the ship and going about, like, their daily lives. Like, a lot of it, it's really a lot of little vignettes told over the course of probably like a space year, which is, they call it a standard, and it's longer than an Earth year, but I don't know how long it actually is. But, there's aliens, and at one point there's pirates, and there's kind of interesting, like, love affairs between these different characters that are complicated for various ways, and you know, and some bad stuff goes down, and there's some really interesting, like, alien cultures that you learn about. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It has 2 sequels, which I 100% plan on reading at some point. I don't know. What else shall I say? Let's see. Yes, this book was honestly really great. I've been thinking about it as I've been working towards finishing it, and I guess my only real complaint is not even really something that diminished my enjoyment of the novel exactly, but like, just that I tend to be the kind of person that, like, there are a few times in this book when the idea of doing something like let me start again. I like it when characters make bad decisions that have repercussions, and that really doesn't happen a lot in this book. Like, people either decide not to do things that would have had bad consequences, or they decide to do things and then the consequences turn out to be alright. I don't know. Like, that's fine, because this is not the only book in the world. If every single book was like this, that would be very boring, but it's just this book, so that's fine. But yeah, it was really a sweet book. It doesn't rely very much on plot or on, it's just, like I said, it's almost a series of vignettes. Like, all of the characters who live on the ship are focused on at one point or another. I really liked all of them. Some of them are more interesting than others, definitely, but, like, I liked them all, and I just am very interested in seeing, like, what happens with their lives in the next book. So I'm definitely gonna read it, but yeah, I'm glad I read this. I think this is the first time I have read a book that I was actually sort of didn't know existed until I started watching BookTube videos. Like, I have only kind of gleaned a very small number of recommendations from all of these videos, because a lot of the people that I watch don't read things that interest me. I don't know why I keep watching them, but whatever. But yeah, so this one is, I guess, popular among some subset of people on BookTube, and that's why I heard of it, and, you know, heard what it was about, and was like, actually, that sounds cool. And there's a few other books like that, which I hope to read, but yeah, so I'm grateful that I kind of became aware of it as a result of that. And I don't know, how many times can I say I want to read the next one? I definitely want to read the next one. If I had to pick a character I'm most curious about in the next book, it's definitely Ohan. So, I'm interested in that. And, like, weirdly, Corbin. There's something about Corbin that I just, like... And the weird thing is, of course, we're introduced to him and he's, like, really unpleasant. But there's just this part of me that's like, yes, I want to get to know the unpleasant one who doesn't like people, you know. So, of course. But, yes, it's wonderful. There are lizard people, and it's just, like, so wonderful, and they live on this little spaceship, and it's kind of like Firefly, but, like, they're not outlaws, and also aliens exist. So, yay! Hello! The Future of Humanity by Michio Kaku. This is the second book, I think, of his that I've read. And I was feeling like I wanted to read something about science. It's been a while. So, I found this one. It was okay. Like, I guess overall I did like it, but it felt uneven. I don't know, I had issues with it. Like I felt like some parts of it were very simple, and I was like, I already know all this. There were other parts that were more complicated. Oh man, and he just gets to these really weird points towards the end, especially where he's going on about, like, type 3 and 4 civilizations, and they have this enormous energy consumption, and, like, all of these massively insane things that maybe they'll be able to do with all of that energy, and, like, it gets weird. But, also, I do like having someone explain string theory to me again. Maybe in, like, small words so I can understand it this time. I have read multiple books on the subject and think it's super interesting, and I still couldn't explain it to you. So, well, maybe I could now, but we'll see how long I retain that knowledge. Also, he really doesn't go into climate change much, which I was thinking he should. I mean, this book is from, like, last year, so it's not, you know, it's not exactly old. It's and he does talk briefly about global warming, but then he just transitions into something else, and I would have preferred, you know, if he'd really done a section on, like, what might happen to humanity as a result, or what can humanity do to prevent this, blah. But a lot of this was, like, okay, like, it felt like the book was either talking about more immediate exploring the galaxy, or extremely far in the future batshit stuff. I don't know, I mean, he quotes some science fiction that I like. He writes well, of course, but it was not exactly what I was hoping it would be, and I feel like I really didn't learn that much that I didn't already know, which is kind of probably a me problem, and I should maybe read some books about science that are not for an extremely general audience, but that's hard. So, yeah. What is happening on the cover here? Okay. Yeah, so I was kind of disappointed by it, but I'm not saying it's actually, like, a bad book or anything, just it's not really what I wanted to read, I guess. So, you know, hopefully I can get my hands on a book about science that will satisfy my cravings for one relatively soon. I did it! Book 5! Finished that shit! Nemesis Games by James S. A. Corey. I really liked this one. Kind of the premise that made it interesting was that all 4 of the usual crew members of the Rocinante get perspective chapters instead of just Holden. So, like, you don't get any new people, but, like, you get Naomi, Alex, and Amos now, and that's, I don't know, I thought that was pretty cool. And the plot is like, they've got to wait for the Rocinante to get fixed at Tycho Station, and it's going to take ages. So they all go their separate ways because they have, you know, oh, I'm going to go visit some people back on Earth or whatever, and do some stuff. And then, of course, shit goes down while they're separated. A major thing happens in this book. I felt like this book was a little bit more set up, really, because, like, by the end, some really terrible things have happened, but they haven't quite reached, like, they haven't really dealt fully with the threat. Like, basically, there's a terrorist group, and they do some terrorist things, and they're still out there at large, so, like, it's not really wrapped up, but, you know, but, like, and also I thought it was very interesting the way it ends is, like, essentially, okay, so toward the beginning there's a couple of mysteries about ships going missing, and you think they're connected up until the very end when the characters realize, hang on, maybe these are actually two separate things, and there is something strange going on, you know, that's separate from this terrorist organization. Yeah, so anyway, I thought this was quite good. I really liked the Naomi chapters especially. Like, it was just really, like, I've been curious for a while what her dark backstory is, because, like, we kind of knew she had one, but we weren't told, so I thought it was really good. And, of course, she's a fucking badass, and just, I'm very proud of her. And, yeah, gosh, and then, of course, the big terrorist thing that happens and is so awful is, like, pretty much the worst thing that they could have done. I'm gonna be a little vague about it, I guess, on the off chance anyone cares, but, like, yeah, that was intense. You know, that was a lot. And the fallout is going to have to continue throughout the rest of the series, and that's going to be really interesting to read. So I'm super looking forward to book 6, and especially off just basically to see the fallout. Oh, also this book has a lot of Bobby in it. A+, good job, love it. Clarissa shows up again as well, and it looks like she's going to be joining the crew, probably. So I'm pretty excited to see how that works. I kind of like that Amos is just this, like there's something wrong with that man's brain. I mean, no offense, but there is. And, like, and I love him. But I kind of love the fact that he's sort of semi-adopted Clarissa as, like, he's like, well, you can be my apprentice. And I'm like, oh my god, it's like Murder Dude is going to have, like, this little murder apprentice. Anyway. She kills a lot of people. Whatever. So it'll be interesting. I would love it if they could somehow get Bobby to also be on the Rossi, but, like, I don't think that's going to happen because I feel like she's got other things to do, but I want more Bobby. Also, Avasarala was in this some, like, still certainly less than in book 2, but, like, she was in it a fair amount, and I was really excited about that, because, like, they're my favorite characters, I guess. I don't know. And, oh boy, just the thing that happened, it was so much, and it was, like, I was like, oh my god, you know, because, like, it reminded me of something that happens on Babylon 5, which I'll just leave it at that, but, like, it was worse on B5 in some ways, but in other ways it's like, oh, this is way more personal. Yeah, so, yeah. Great. And, yeah, so I'm looking forward to book 6. I'll cut it off here, but, yeah. I finished my challenge book for this month, The Climb, Tragic Ambitions on Everest, by Anatoli Boukreev and Weston DeWalt. This is super great, actually. It's a non-fiction book about a disastrous attempt to climb Mount Everest in May of 1996, and this guide who was part of that group and how he rescued a number of the people. And was a serious badass. So, like, I really enjoyed it. I feel like I learned a lot about how people climb Mount Everest. And I already knew I didn't want to do it. So, like, this just gives me, reinforces my knowledge that is a decision that is correctly made. Don't climb Mount Everest, guys. It sounds like so hard. But it's really interesting. You get a lot about climbing the mountain itself and just the logistics of trying to put together a group to do it. And also it's a story of sort of all the different personalities in this particular team and all the things that go wrong and how quickly stuff can go wrong. And it's so interesting too, because it's like you're on Mount Everest, you're in like a whiteout blizzard, and these people are literally like within, I think it was like 15 meters of, that seems like not enough. Whatever, they were really close to the camp they were trying to find, but they couldn't find it because it was whiteout conditions, and, they were all running out of oxygen and just couldn't think, and this guy was a total badass. And also, it was interesting because once you get past the actual event and they start talking a bit about the reaction to it and whatnot, it gets into talking about the book Into Thin Air by John Krakauer, and can I just say, fuck that guy. Okay, I haven't read that book and I don't know much about him, but they talk about several instances where he just refuses to listen to Boukreev explaining over and over again why he did a certain thing, and like won't change what he wrote. Like, it was in an article and then they try to correct him and then it's still in the book and it's like, what are you doing? Anyway, I really enjoyed this, and I'm glad I bought it at the library book sale, knowing basically nothing about it except it has Tragic and Everest on it. So I was definitely very into that. I like books about climbing Mount Everest, apparently. I've only read a few, but... Okay, done with that. And now it is time to choose again, and to really hope that it isn't a long one. A Wizard of Earthsea? Oh boy! Yeah, I'm wearing sweatpants. Alright. A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. So this is a fantasy book. It's not long at all. It is the first of a trilogy. Ursula K. Le Guin is like my favorite author, but I wasn't really planning on reading her fantasy books because I'm just not that into fantasy. But then somebody that has opinions I sometimes trust, at least, did a YouTube video that I watched where he talked, I'm talking about Dominic Noble, or the Dom, as he used to go by, but anyway, he did this whole video where he was talking about like an adaptation of Earthsea trilogy and like going into what he really liked about the books, and I was like, this actually sounds really interesting. So, but this book, funny story, I have owned this for longer than I think anything else that I put in this mug. Oh, definitely. Yeah, definitely longer than anything else I put in this mug, because my friend gave it to me randomly, like junior year or something of high school. So I've had it for a long fucking time. And haven't read it in all that time, even though it's like 180 pages. And also it looks like it's been driven over. That's okay. Look at it. It's got something spilled on it. It was like some, I don't know where she found it. It was just like used. It was like this when she gave it to me. But it was funny too because last year we went hiking, and while we were hiking together, her and I, we were talking about science fiction and stuff, and she mentioned, like I was telling her Ursula K. Le Guin is like the bomb, and then she mentioned that she used to have one of her, like her Wizard of Earthsea, and she's like, I don't know what happened to it, and I was like, you gave it to me in high school, and I've had it since then. And then she was like, oh. And then I was like, you want it back? She's like, no, I must have meant to give it to you. I just forgot I did that. I was like, oh my god. So anyway, super pumped about this, obviously. Yeah.